Hey, welcome everybody to our live stream series, We Thrive Together, our online global community where we've created a safe place to talk about anxiety and stress in the workplace. And as always, I'm hosting with my dear friend and my co-author, my brother in arms, Adrian Gostick. Wave to the crowd.
Your confidant, your confessor. Yeah.
My
Hey,
psychiatrist,
delighted to
my
be here,
psychologist.
everybody. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, listen, if you haven't been following Adrian on Forbes, he's been writing some fabulous articles. And we like to take our live stream the chance to kind of talk about some of the concepts there. And this last one really resonated with me, and I'm sure it resonates with a lot of you as well. That Sunday night, when you've got that job that you just dread going to, I'll never forget, we were up in the Adirondacks in upstate New York, this beautiful place, and we were there with my niece, and she'd invited some friends, and they had to leave at Sunday before noon. And I said, well, gosh, why don't you just stay a few more hours? They had to get back to the city for work. And he said, this is the time when I just start to dread Monday morning. Now, he was in the financial industry doing very well. And yet that Sunday night just drove him crazy. I mean, that anxiety that built up to the point where he had to leave this really lovely engagement early. Now, Adrian, you write about in your Forbes article 3 ways to help mitigate that Sunday night horror, is what I'd like to call it. Walk us through those 3 things.
Or let's start, with the beginning with why we did this, right? Why are we worrying about this? Well, here's one reason was that 81% of workers answered yes to the following question. Do you experience elevated anxiety on Sunday in anticipation of going to work on Monday? So, your young friend's experience, unfortunately, was not alone. You got 4 out of 5 of us feeling, kind of those heart palpitations on Sunday night. So what's going on? Well, we really are starting to worry about what we're going to face, what we face on Monday morning. Our brains, as you know, are wired to keep us safe. And so they're anticipating, something bad's going to happen. Don't you think?
Yeah. That was a really aha for me when we did the research, was that we really are wired to look for the negative, to look for danger,
Yeah.
and it always keeps you on edge because you're always imagining the worst, right? What's the worst thing that can happen? That's what you think about. Well, you talk about in the steps, though, Adrian, talk about be in tune with your motivators. What do you mean by that?
One of the things that we spend a lot of time on are our strengths. There's a whole strengths movement. People have written, very famous books about playing to our strengths, and it's important you do something that you are good at. The problem is, though, we get locked in sometimes to what we are supposedly good at, and we don't worry about actually what gives us our drive, our passion, our motivation. And so, I come back to, so somebody may be really good at the details, so let's give Janice always the detail stuff.
Right.
Well, maybe she wants to be more creative. She wants to work more with customers. No. You're the detail person. That's what you're good at. We tend to play to strengths and ignore the motivators. Now, you and I love hockey. We can't be professional hockey players. We're not good enough. It's not a strength, but it's a motivator. So we have to marry the two. We have to do things we love to do as well as things we're good at. What we tend to forget is those things that give us the skip in our step. So we really have to identify what is it that we're doing on those days where we do feel more passion at work, and then try to identify, can we do a little bit more of those? Now, of course, we have an assessment, don't we? The Motivators assessment that helps you figure that out. You can do some of it yourself as well.
Yeah, it is interesting too when you think about those little things that give you joy, and I think sometimes we think about, it's got to be a big thing,
Yeah.
It's a hockey game. Well, there's only 41 home games, right? Wouldn't we love to go to all of them? This idea too of just saying, hey, you know what? I know when I go for a walk, I know when I just take some time to get outside and breathe some oxygen. We had a wonderful guest, Erica First, on our podcast, Anxiety at Work, and we encourage you to look that up as well, where she said, there's oxygen is the eraser on the chalkboard of getting rid of all those emotions. So to take that time. Now, it may not be something we say, well, look, I'm really passionate about walking. Yeah. What you are, though, is you're taking a look and saying, that's something I know will help me cope, will
Yeah.
help me clear my mind, help me relax anxiety. Well, what are some of the things you do, Adrian, to keep yourself on track?
No, one of the ideas with, thankfully you and I love our work. We look forward to Monday, so we're some of the lucky few. But we've all been in those situations where we weren't, right? We worked in those kind of
Yeah.
situations, and one of the ideas is kind of this. It's this actually the second point in this article is that you have to create boundaries between your work and your home. How many of us take our phones to bed with us? We're worried about missing that email, that text from the boss. We have to create some distance. So I used to do this little trick when I was driving home during those stressful times. I would reach the valley where my house is, and I would turn around and I would say, "Stay." Uh, little thing, right? But it was this little ritual where we love rituals where I would just say, "Stay to work," and I'm going to be home. I'm going to transition because the human brain not only needs time where it's not working, it needs time where it's not thinking about work.
I think you got that from those dogs that live at your house.
Got a lot of dogs in my house. Yeah.
You also talk about dialing back the weekend 911s. I love that little title. There's so many things that we think we have to that are
Oh,
so urgent, and you've got some great advice on that.
well, and how often do we do this to our, say we're a manager, how often do we do this to our employees? I'll just send a quick little note out to everybody. They know I'm just working on the weekends. They don't need to be. They get that from you on Saturday afternoon. That's all they're thinking about all weekend. And I'm talking to so many more managers that are doing this. They'll put the timer on for Monday at 8. You got to give people time because what we create are environments where everything's a 911. And you create that kind of environment, you burn out. Our recent guest on our podcast, she said she burned out and had actually vision loss from stress. And she says, I was working in a job that I loved, but
Yeah,
she had
wasn't that
no
fascinating?
time off. There was no boundaries, and she didn't recognize the triggers that were affecting her.
Yeah, I think that the stress and anxiety has gotten to you when you go blind in your right eye. And to your point, a job that she adored.
Yeah.
She just was giving so much to her job that her body started to shut down. It was interesting. Her name's Erica First, by the way. She's the co-founder of Moodily. You should check it out. Where she said her doctor said, "Look, you're in perfect health. It must be stress." And then everybody started to laugh.
Yeah.
Not sure that that's all that funny, but it did at least lighten the mood. The third strategy, and we come back to this in our book, Anxiety at Work, as the eighth strategy, is you need to up your gratitude. You just really need to step back and say, look, as bad as this, I was reading an old a sermon online, and the guy said, "I'm old enough now to remember when times were worse," which I thought was a great line. I'm old enough to remember, hey, it's been worse than this, so be grateful that it's not as bad as it used to be. But, talk about some of the tips that you gave in the article about amping up gratitude, because I've come to the conclusion there are very few problems that can't be solved with a big dose of gratitude.
Well, one of the leaders that you and I have been a big fan of for years that we talk about in the article is Bill Manning.
Yeah.
Bill Manning is now the president of Toronto FC, and they've won the Major League Soccer Cup, but more importantly, he's gone from season ticket sales of a couple of thousand to tens of thousands. He has really transformed the organization into a winning organization, but also one that is very profitable. And so one of the things that he does, and I love this idea, it's very simple. When he has a staff meeting, instead of recognizing people as the boss, he asks people who are they going to recognize. And it has to be somebody in another team. And I love this. He says it breaks down silos. So when we were there, he called on John, who was in sales. He says, "Who are you going to recognize today, John?" He says, "Oh, okay. I want to recognize Aaron, who's in accounting." He says, because when I sell a season ticket package, I always call Aaron because he's going to call that customer. He's going to be so excited for them. He always collects the money, but he actually makes the sale better and he reinforces the sale. So anyway, Aaron comes up and everybody's cheering and Bill has a couple of gift certificates for him. It's nothing huge, but it's a thank you. And what I love about this, it just raises morale. Everybody's thinking about, have I done enough to help people in other teams? Who would I recognize who's been in another team who's helped me? And all of a sudden, all the silos that he said that I found when I got there broke down. We weren't this team and this team and this team anymore. We were just one team. And I love that idea.
Yeah, the great thing about Bill as well is, for all the success he's had at Toronto FC, this year has been one of the worst seasons they've ever had.
Yeah.
And yet he keeps up, what I can control, what I can control. They just hired Bob Bradley, who used to be the national coach, and he's always finds a way to bring that hope and that appreciation. Hey, even though it's not the year that we wanted to have, think of all the good things we did do, the hard work that we put in. Yeah, huge fan of Bill Manning.
And we got a question or a comment here from Joe, and I'd love you to hear your thoughts, Jess. He says, as we all try to balance work life, he says, I think this great resignation is because of some of this high work expectation. Stress is not only a literal killer, but important to cross-train for life with other activities that fuse well. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it is. We talk about triggers all the time. Yeah. I love, by the way, I love that Joe shows up like on every live show that we do. Joe, you're amazing. Want to give a real shout out. This fact that it is a literal killer and that you've got to pay attention to it because it's easy to go down those roads. I mean, we've all had friends that have either engaged in self-harm, if not have taken their lives. And we all have that regret that we should have engaged with them more. Well, there's a lot of ways that we've got to be careful with ourselves as well to be aware of that. We talk about the triggers. And again, in our recent podcast, what are your triggers? What are the things that set you off? Adrian, you and I have been talking recently about where do we go from here? Let's do more of the things that we really love. Yeah. And let's try to amp down on the things that really, eat into our time and eat into our joy and our happiness at work.
And that's what and you're right, Joe, that's what the Great Resignation is all about. We're calling it the Great Reassessment because people aren't saying, no, I'm never going to work again. They're just saying, I'm not going to keep doing the things that I did before, commuting an hour each way, working 60 hours a week and not getting the appreciation that I want, not feeling like I have the opportunity to own my work, whatever it is that drives you. So this comes back to our first point about knowing our motivators.
Right.
When Chess, you and I left very successful corporate careers, it wasn't about money. It wasn't about not being able to do interesting work, all the things that many psychologists will talk about being real drivers of people like purpose, et cetera. We had all that. What we didn't have was what motivated us, which was owning our work and being able to go deeper with clients, things like that. So find out what your motivators are. And that's what the Great Reassessment is all about. So if you're a manager, you got to find out and take a little bit of time with your people to find out what really makes them tick.
Well, and I like the way you rephrase that, from the Great Resignation to the Great Reassessment, because people are taking time to step back and say, hey, what's it all about? What am I really making a difference? Am I really engaged? And I think this is great advice. So the 3 steps, tune into your motivators. What are you really passionate about? Dial down the weekend 911 and amp up your gratitude. Wonderful article. If you're not following Adrian on Forbes, start today. We also published today our LinkedIn newsletter, the Gratitude Journal, that highlights our Anxiety at Work podcast. And of course, our book, Anxiety at Work, available at fine bookstores everywhere. So I think I got in all the commercials there, Adrian, as to where people should go. So I'll let you have the last word. I love that we keep this to 15 minutes, by the way. Very munchable and hopefully some great information for you. I appreciate those that you've tuned in, folks from all over the country. We're so grateful for the time you give us, and hopefully we give you back some good tools and some good energy to manage your anxiety in the workplace.
Because people have told us we can only stand you guys for about 15 minutes. 20 too much. 10, no, we could go a little longer. Yeah. So it's very scientific as we've brought this. Yeah. Hey, we're delighted that you've joined us today. And thanks for the last word is that, life is short. Make sure we do work that we love. And doesn't mean go out and, quit your job and go open a fruit stand. Find ways to find meaning in the work you're doing. Find those things that you can do a little more of, maybe a little less of, and sculpt the work that you're doing right now. So again, thanks everybody for joining us today.
And you only went 7 seconds over. Take care, everybody. Be well, and we'll see you again soon. Cheers.
Bye-bye.